So this is Boardable. Once you receive your login, some of you may have already had some logins, but when you first log in, this is the initial dashboard that you enter upon as you log in. Now, first thing I want to do is really show you just the basics. The dashboard's very helpful because it'll show you as soon as you log in what the RSVP count is to meetings, what the attendance is. So we have some data-driven approach to things as well, so we know how well we're doing. Any tasks that you may have are also listed here. So anything that pops up from, say, a meeting where the secretary records in the minutes, Kish said he would do X, Y, Z. Well, if he or she puts that in the minutes, well, guess what? I get to see them right here. I get an email notification. So it helps keep me focused and on task, and also allows me to go to a central location where I can access everything I need to know. Because I belong in so many committees, what you'll see here is on the left-hand side, you'll see anything that you belong to. Committees are really referenced as groups in Boardable. So any groups that you belong to, you'll be seeing listed over here on the left-hand side, and anything with stars mean that they are organizations or committees that you have administrative rights over. So you can create meeting minutes, create meetings, and record or create any agenda items as well. Anything that you don't have a star for, you're just really a contributor or a member of that committee. The people directory is very helpful. If you click on it, it'll actually give you a listing of every single person and their beautiful faces. So you have all their contact information available to you in a convenient location. Also great to know, especially because you don't need to ask Deb for Jan Merchandani's number or LinkedIn account. Everything's all in one place. It also means that when you get your account request to create, please fill them in as best as you can, and do upload your pictures. It'll make a big difference. Groups on the left-hand side shows you all the groups that exist. There are definitely going to be more as we continue on with our training. We're going to be creating some additional groups after actually this meeting. And it'll be a great way to see who belongs to what group and to be able to communicate with them. It's great. I'm not going to go into some of the advanced things because I myself don't know them well yet. You do have things like meetings listed here on the left-hand side, so you can see what types of meetings are coming up. There are some recurring meetings that pop up. They're all in here as well. So you've got a nice bird's eye view of what the calendar looks like. You also have past meetings on the right-hand side over here. I do want to make a note of documents. There's a documents section here that is not to be used for agendas or minutes. These are sticky documents that you want to keep around for years to come. So for instance, if we have governance documents where we might have bylaws, which we do in this case, those are great places to find them, at the click of a button. Discussions and polls we haven't done anything with yet, but polls are great. Say if we want to get a temperature or a reading of people and what they think about something, it's a great way to put that there. Tasks are available here as well. Some of these other items most you will not see anyway. They're really having to do with the subscription and the account itself. So I'm not going to go into those. So I do want to show you that I've created 3 documents. So the first one we're going to do is what you see here. This is actually a PDF that I'll be printing and sending off to you guys. It has screenshots, it has step-by-step instructions, so there's really no need to write down anything today. Just relax and enjoy your training session. All right, so you've got, let's assume that you have an account, you're part of a group, and what you want to do is go ahead and create a meeting. The first thing you do is you log into Boardable. So I've already done that here. Then the next thing you do is you go to groups and you select your group that you're part of. So in this case, I'm going to, just as a mock meeting, I'm going to create something for a task force I belong to. So I clicked on the task force. And then what I do is you see the section right here called meetings. You just click on add meeting. Now this is where the meat and potatoes are of creating a meeting. You can create a meeting without having an agenda or minutes tied to it. So that's why these are 3 independent lessons put together. So first thing is, I always recommend left to right, top to bottom, put down the date. Let's assume we have a meeting tomorrow. I'm going to choose a time. Let's say it's at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. The start and end, estimated end time is very important that you put in there because people will receive calendar invitations with this system, and to be able to have them on their calendars, you want to make them as consistent as possible. For the title, I always recommend making sure that it is an appropriate title. So if it is, for instance, in this case, a task force meeting, I'm going to put down task force meeting, and I like to put down just the way I'd like to put down the date as well, just because it's easier to find when that happens. So it's 7/31/2020. Location. Now, this is an interesting thing because we are clearly working very virtually right now. So what I recommend is, because people will be sent calendar invites, that you put the Zoom link here. And this is in your instructions as well. You would right click and paste. Sorry, should have copied that first. Copy and paste. So that's a Zoom link. In the description, I always recommend, if you notice when you create a Zoom link yourself, you get this additional information. It's very helpful. Even today in this meeting, we have, for instance, Bruce, who is joining in two ways. He's joining in from his computer and from his phone. So I always recommend pasting that information here as well. So that's the full information that Zoom gives you when you generate a meeting. It allows people to dial in by phone number. It also gives them access to the meeting ID and passcode. So it's great to have that. It is a little redundant, but as you go down, you'll also see here, they have a system called video conference. It's in beta, and I've been instructed by Boardable not to recommend people use this just yet. It's not perfect. So what they recommend to us is that use third-party remote link. Again, this is only until the pandemic is over, but we don't know how long that's going to be. So for now, it's good to have the Zoom links in here. I recommend just rinse and repeat here because it's great to have it on the agenda system. So over here, I'd paste that same link from up here, down here. So that Zoom link again. And down here, just for convenience for people, I would paste the meeting ID and passcode here as well. If I'm going too fast or you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt and ask questions at any time. I want to make this as interactive as possible, and I want to make sure that you're able to digest this without a problem.
Do you want me putting the breakfast meetings or the virtual breakfast meetings in Boardable that I send out to the general membership? Like, we have the new member breakfast next week, which I could do for the ambassadors.
No.
But not put those things, you not want me putting those things in?
No, the Boardable is just for people that are behind the curtains at the chamber.
Okay, you got it. Okay.
All right. So as we go down, you'll notice here that who are the people in the group. Since you started from the group, it automatically assumes that this is having to do with the task force that I created this meeting for. And I'll see all the people listed over here as well on the right-hand side. If I want to add additional people, say if I want to add the board of directors, I can just check that box and they automatically get added in this list here. I can also uncheck them and it'll remove them. I can also add individuals. It will give you the whole database of all the folks who are involved in their volunteer efforts at the board, at the board and all committees. You can also, for instance, Rich, who's on this meeting as well, he was a guest in one of our meetings. I can just simply type in, and I'll just use John Smith here in this case. I can just type in their information and their email address and click add. And they will also receive the details that you're sending regarding the meeting. They will not have access to past meetings or other meetings that they're not involved in. They will only have access to the things that they're involved in. So this is good. It's a secure way of sending this information.
So is everybody can change the names if they want, or is it just a person is the, in other words, you clicked on board of directors and it added it in. Now, yes. But who created the database of board of directors and who can change that?
We did, and board officers can change this.
Okay, so is that, okay.
And Deb, of course.
Gotcha.
Okay. Guests are really just you're probably gonna have like 1 or 2 randomly across the year, maybe at a meeting. And it's just really seldom used, but it's good to know that you have it. And if there are certain people that you don't want to include, you can just deselect them by clicking on these X's here. But I want to keep this as simple as possible. So this is just to set up the meeting. And I know it seems like a lot of work initially, but once you get the hang of it, it'll become second nature. You might just have 2 or 3 meetings and then it should be easier. So I'm going to go ahead and create this. What I'm going to do is just for the sake of argument here, because I don't want this to be a real meeting, I'm going to just have myself on this and take the guest out as well. Okay. So now when I click on save and continue, that's it, I'm done. That's 1/3 of a lesson completed right here. This meeting now exists. It is not published. It's still in a draft format. The next thing is creating an agenda. So you create the meeting, then you create the agenda. Before we move on to that, any questions? Okay, good. So the agenda portion, which I know could be dealt with by another person, but typically we recommend that the chair sets the meeting and sets the agenda, and the secretary, or if it has to be the chair again, does the minutes. So you've now created the meeting. What we're going to do is build an agenda. So what you do is, this is all the details about the meeting. You can just, if you ever need to make any changes, you can review them at any time. You know who the guests are, and you can adjust it as needed. The next thing is really building an agenda. So the way you do that is on the right-hand side, you'll see Build Agenda. I'll click on it. And this is where the time savings really happens. If you recall, agendas that may have been built before were built with Word or Google Docs, and maybe you copied and pasted it, or you got creative and you had a template. With this, you can either start from scratch, which I'd recommend the first time if it makes sense for your organization or your committee, or start with a template. Now, in this case, the chamber has one template that exists that you can use, and that is a general meeting template. We also have one for the executive committee, but that's one that we've been using. It has certain agenda items that are not typically used in other committees, but the general meeting, if you click on it, actually gives you a preview of what it looks like, and it has all the basics of any meeting. You call the meeting to order, you have roll call, you address minutes, you have your discussion, any new business, review the action items, and an adjournment. So I'm going to choose to do that right now just because it's easier to continue our lesson. So I'll go ahead and use template. And so now what you're seeing is our agenda. And first thing I want to point out is that you do have parent items. That's what these numbers are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you have sub items. The sub items are helpful because what they do is let you have any of the child items, the sub items listed. So for instance, when we're talking about minutes, there are 2 things we want to really talk about minutes. One is approve the last meeting minutes, and the other is review any past action items that we said we'd accomplish, and just make sure that they were getting done. You can also have sub items. So that's where you'll see these plus signs down here. They show you any of the sub items. So if I click here, discuss a better structure. So I can click and just simply type in whatever items I want to add to the agenda, and all I do is click on add. And there it is right there. And I can continue to add more sub items, or if I choose to ignore it and go on to something else, it will not include that sub item in my final version. So really good to know that. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that all of these items, you can actually enhance the performance of your meeting by making sure the right roles and responsibilities are accounted for. So for instance, who's calling the meeting to order? If I click on it, you'll notice on the right-hand side, I can actually choose the people that are responsible for that particular function in the agenda. So in this case, I'm the one managing this meeting, so I'll click here and I'll click on my name. And one other thing I could do is how long something might be. So if I choose something say if it's 5 minutes, calling the meeting to order is actually not a 5-minute thing, but I'll just do that for sake of argument here. I can do that here. I can also include descriptions of what that is if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to hit save. And what you'll notice when I hit save, you have to hit save, by the way, is that on the right-hand side, calling the meeting to order now shows my name, and it shows 5 minutes. It also shows, can everyone see this, by the way? I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
Yes.
You can see the start time, and if you go to the end, you see an end time. So what's great about this is that the minute taker, the secretary, can help keep the meeting on focus. So can the chair. As it starts, they know how long each item is anticipated to take, and they know that if it's 8:45 and you're still on the second item, well, guess what? You're behind schedule and you need to hurry your butts up, or allocate more time. This is something that we've been playing with over the past few meetings. We've noticed that some things take more time, other things take less time. It's good to be able to assess for them beforehand. The other cool thing you can do is, for instance, say if you have a discussion, and the discussion, I'm going to click here, discuss Cortland's new budget, okay? And I'm going to click on add, and let's assume that the person that wants to discuss that budget, if I click on this right here, let's assume it's me again. I'm going to click on my name, and I'm going to assume that this budget discussion may take 15 minutes, but I can do something more. I can also click here on this icon to add the budget. So the way I do that is I click on this icon, and then I click on this plus right here, and I select a file. So it's a PDF or Word document, doesn't matter. And I hit submit. Now, what's cool about this is that the people that are following this agenda, when they get to this item, they'll actually be able to just click to show the budget. So when they get to that section, there's no need to, oh, well, out of the 6 documents that are part of this agenda, you have to find the budget one. No, they just click on that particular section and they see the budget. So it's a good time saver, especially when you're working more remotely now.
And if you share your screen doing that, if you hit share screen, when you click on that, that'll come up?
Well, it depends on how you're doing your meeting. So if the idea here is that to share the screen, that's an alternative way of sharing your budget, for instance. In that case, no one really needs to have that, but I figure some people like to see these things on an individual basis, or they want to reference them in advance of the meeting and maybe make some notes or make any comments on those things. So that's where that comes in handy. So I'm gonna hit save here. So that's there, and the document's attached. Any questions so far?
Yeah, how do you load the document? Let's say you're running the meeting and you have this budget. Okay, so you have to load it to be able to get it to everybody, right? So no?
That's what I just did here. So let me show you here. What I do is I click.
So the document, in other words, there's a document. Okay. I mean, I see, but where was the document? So it was loaded someplace, wasn't it?
Yes, it was saved to my computer. So for instance, a lot of people put their things in their downloads folder.
I got you.
Or their documents. So it's right there and you just pull it from there. All right, so these are the big key items to take away from here. I recommend not using these other links, the Dropbox, Google Drive, or OneDrive. And the reason why is because, say if Melissa shares a Google Drive document for the young professionals and she shares it from her Google account, and she forgets to share it with the individual people that she's sharing it with by punching in their email address, what they will see is a document that they do not have access to. So I'd recommend, I mean, this is probably not applicable to all of you. I know that some of you may be using Google Docs or OneDrive. I would recommend first save the file to your computer, which is probably gonna be the case 9 out of 10 times anyway, and upload the file using only this icon. And my instructions clearly put X's in front of these things to tell you not to use these other things. So just use this. But when you click on it, you'll be taken through a process here where you can upload a new document. You'll click on this plus here, and then you'll select a file. You pick a file from your local computer, and you attach it. And then that will end up here, and you'll see this here. So let me show you that. Now, this is still in an editing format. So if you ever want to know what your agenda looks like as you're building it, at any point at the top right, you'll notice that there's a View Agenda button. There's also View as a PDF. So I'm going to click on View Agenda. What that does is it opens up a new tab, and it shows me what the agenda looks like. So you see this already in the works here. It puts in the logo at the top, puts in all this nice and clean information. What's great about this is that the folks that are in the meeting may have this open as they're discussing things with you, and they can do some cool things. They can actually click to find out what section they're in, what time it is, how long they anticipate, where we are. They can also enter notes. So for instance, that discussion about Cortland's new budget, I see right here, I can click, there's a PDF right here. I can just simply click on it. I can pull up that PDF. It's a great time saver. But I can also then, say if I wanted to add comments about Cortland's new budget, even before the meeting starts, I can click on it, and on the right-hand side, you'll see My Notes. These are your private notes. You can put down, they should spend less money on bouncy houses and more on community service. George, I'm looking at you. And then add that note. So people can do all of this stuff from the convenience of their home. They can also print out the agenda as a PDF, so they can just, you know, scribble scrabble on paper. You can also print all the agenda documents. Everything in a nice, convenient packet is available to you. All right. Now, I'm going to close this tab. I'm going to go back. This is still not a finished agenda. We have not published our meeting yet, but keep in mind that we want to publish our meeting after we've completed our agenda. So in this case, let's just assume we've entered the rest of the information, because this is really just for training purposes. So the next step is really to click on Return to Meeting. You'll notice that over here. And what that does is it brings me back to this page, which shows me the meeting page. And now I have an agenda. So I don't have to create an agenda, it's all there. I can actually see the details of the meeting. I can see that there's an agenda. Any of the attachments I made are available here conveniently. And this is actually a page that also the people that will be joining the meeting will get to see. So you get to see what the finished product also looks like. Now, in order to publish the meeting, all we have to do is click on this Publish Full Meeting button right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And what I get the choice of doing right now is I can send a message to people. I can inform them of the meeting. This is that thing you do where you try to find out all the email addresses of the people that are in that committee, then you put them in an email, and you type it all up. Here, you don't have to do any of that. You just have to type up the message, because it already assumes that the people that are part of that meeting are going to get that message. So in this case, I'm just going to put down, hey guys, looking forward to seeing you at the next meeting. I can't spell today. And then I can send a notification to collaborators. Collaborators are people that are working with you on the meeting. Typically, it's going to be the chair and the secretary or other people that are there. In this case, I just have this meeting. It's a meeting of one, so that's why you're only seeing my face. But if you had invited users, for instance, or a guest, you'll actually be able to see their faces pop up here, letting you know that's including them all. I can also choose this individuals button, and I'll have a choice to select all the folks that are going to be getting that invitation. And I can click on Publish. Now the meeting's official. This is a real thing. This is going to happen. I can also RSVP for the meeting in advance. So I would just click on yes. Now, if other people also do the same thing, you no longer have to ask questions. I know that Deb sometimes does this for our board meeting, saying, hey, we have a board meeting next week. Please confirm if you can make it or not. The RSVP handles all that. There's no need to ask that question or receive responses. People will just click yes, no, or maybe. And it will all be available to them there. Okay. Now, the other thing you can do is you want to send them additional information like the attachments that you have. So you'll see over here on the right-hand side, I can click on Send Message. When I do that, I have the opportunity to include meeting information and attach the agenda as a PDF. For some folks, they want this. Boardable by default tries to discourage this because they want Boardable to be the central platform for all information, especially if you have sensitive information that you're sending through committees or boards. You want to make sure that you keep them on Boardable. But say if you want to send it the old-fashioned way, you can attach it as a PDF and tell everyone information is attached, and I can choose all the folks that I want to include that in. And Boardable will actually do the legwork for you. They'll take the agenda, they'll attach it, they'll send it as an email to all the folks involved. All right, so that completes 2/3 of our training. How's everyone doing? Good? All right. No one's falling asleep. Maybe Deb fell asleep, Lucille? No. All right, next up. So you have your meeting, and it's time to now start taking minutes. Depending on how you do it, I know that some folks maybe would prefer to write it down. That's fine, you can write things down. Others are a bit more comfortable with the digital side, so they may be willing to just pop out their laptop. The secretary may say, hey, let me just go ahead and write down everything. What you would do then is you would come back to this page, and my instructions show you how to do that. Once you go to that page, you click on Take Minutes, and this is really cool. Once you click on Take Minutes, you're given the choice. Do you want to start from the agenda, or do you want to start from scratch? 90+% of the time, you're probably going to start from the agenda because you're going to follow the agenda. So if I click on Start from Agenda, I'll get this option here where I can click on this padlock to unlock the meeting and be able to take minutes. Only one person can take minutes at a time. In most cases, just really going to be one person anyway. But oh, look, looks a little familiar, right? So I've got my meeting structure here. I've got the call to meeting order, roll call, all the other details. I even added something like discuss a better structure. I even added discuss Cortland's new budget. So all these line items here are things you can enter notes for. So how do you do that? Well, simple. I'll click here and put down Kish called the meeting to order at 8:35 a.m. That's it. That's my note. Now, roll call, you actually don't really have to have this in here because the meeting has another page where you can just check off people that are on roll call, but we'll cover that later on. Meeting minutes, any notes that are here, you would put them in here. Approvals, this is an interesting thing. So everything by default is a note because in most cases that's what you're entering. But say if there's something more specific. So for instance, anything that you're voting on, you would click on this little plus sign right here, and you can actually enter, for instance, a decision or a vote. In this case, we want to vote. So I'll click on vote. And what you'll notice is that in my case, I'm the only one that's at this meeting, but if there were like 10 other people, it would list every single person, and you can choose whether they approve something or did not approve it, or if they abstained from that vote. And if there's some note that you want to include, you can do that here as well. So say in many cases the no, and maybe you had a discussion, Kish doesn't agree with this, this path. You can do that here. So everything is organized based on that vote as well. If you, for instance, let's assume you had a discussion, discussed how young professionals can bring in more youth in the group. And say if you had a decision, you can actually, when you click here, you can hit this plus sign and click on decision. And you'll notice a little gavel going in here, which is kind of nice. It makes it easier for the minutes to really show you the difference between, just notes or decisions. And you can put down that we all agreed that candy is the best way to bring in young professionals. Okay, so there's your lovely note there. So it's a great way to do that. There's some other things that are really useful here. I would think that the most common, let's see here, that I've noted are going to be text, which is the default, votes, which are down here, a decision, and task. Now, task is a big one. What's cool about this is, remember, the secretary has the ability to designate tasks. So for instance, if the Cortland's new budget, let's assume that I'm in charge of it, God forbid, I'm going to click on this plus sign here, and I'm going to click on task. And the task, I would just simply type in Kish agreed to redo Cortland's entire budget within 3 hours. And then I can actually assign who that is. So I click here for search people and I click on person. I can even put down the due date. Some people need to get things done sooner. So other people can just do it by the next meeting. So for instance, if this is due by, well, I want to knock this out in 3 hours. So I guess I have to get this due today. I have that here. So I put it in there and then it sticks, and you can add more if you'd like. You can have a bunch of tasks. And what I personally like is the review of action items down here, where during the agenda, as you're going along the agenda before you conclude your meeting, you should review those agenda items. So this would be a great place to put them if it makes more sense there versus at the particular agenda points that you have as you're going along. So you have the flexibility with this, and what's good is that the tasks, doesn't matter, you can still find them very easily. Now, what if you made a mistake or you need to move something around? You can do that at any point. Say if you clicked over here and you put down, let's put down note 1, and then you have this thing right here, and you made a mistake, it's note 2, you can at any time move things around. So the way you do that is you click on this little 4 square box right here, 4 circle box, and I can move things down or up. And you'll notice that, for instance, review of action items, let's assume that it's up here and I need it to be below new business. I can just click and move it down, and it actually renumbers everything. So new business is back to number 5, and number 6 is the review of action items. I can also move it up. I can also say if I don't like this note and there's a problem with it, I can click on this little box right here and click on this X. And in this case, I don't want to remove this because it also removes the action items, but just for the sake of argument here, if I click on this X, I have to click on it twice and it removes that item. So say if there was some agenda items, your agenda was too long and you didn't cover all those extra things, you can probably enter a note that says we did not discuss it. But if there was some mistake that the person who wrote the agenda made and you didn't need to talk about it, that would be a great thing to delete from the minutes, and that's how you would do that. Questions so far? Okay. So you've taken your minutes, and now I'm going to click on Return to Meeting. And that brings me back again to this lovely page where you have everything having to do with this particular meeting. You'll notice that things are changing as you go along, because now minutes, you can actually open minutes. You can open them as a PDF because you've created them. Before this didn't even exist. And yes, you can at any point go back. Say if there are errors in the minutes, I can just click on Open Minutes again and click on this little padlock and just go ahead and make changes as I need. These automatically get saved to the cloud. Now, the recommendation is that after meetings, you should send your minutes to everyone in the committee or the board. And the best way to do that, I've seen a lot of people from a structural standpoint have the chair ask the secretary to record the minutes and then share them with the chair for final review. And it's up to you how you structure yourselves. If you want the secretary to send that whole packet after the meeting minutes, or if you wanted the chair to do it, that's based on your individual structure. But the way to do that and to really properly finish the meeting is to be able to send them a meeting summary. So you'll notice over here, in this case, this meeting has not completed yet because it's actually scheduled for tomorrow. So I can't show you that on this particular meeting, but I will show it to you on a prior meeting that we had, just so you know what that looks like. So for instance, we had let's go to past meetings. So we had a meeting yesterday. So this is a meeting that we had yesterday. It looks very much similar to the prior setup that we had. The only difference is that on the right-hand side, you'll see meeting summary. And when I click on that, this Boardable system will actually be able to put everything together. So it'll create a cover page, it'll log the attendance of the meeting, the tasks, the agenda items, and the minutes, and you can just send off a meeting summary to everybody that happens to be in this meeting. And you just click all the people invited users. They even have some people who did not show up, but did not RSVP, but you might still want to share that with them. And that's important to be able to send these minutes to every single person. Then I hit send, and that actually sends off everything in a nice clean packet. And that's it.